we're live, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on?
Another day for tea. Well, only I'm drinking water. And my orange soda.
I have Donut Shop sweet tea today. If you know, you know. It's bomb.com.
I know I got my turmeric chai tea. You know what I'm saying? Get that.
I'm gonna need you to switch it up. You have the same tea every time.
Doggone right. Keep on having the same old tea.
We need some new tea.
I
started taking some turmeric. We'll see how it works.
Oh man, so great to have everyone back. Welcome to At the Blue Table. It's still in quarantine. We're like 2 months into quarantine now. It's just another way of life now. You know what I'm saying? So how are you guys doing? How you guys doing?
You know, this quarantine life is a little bit crazy. Don't tell nobody. I'm hosting a wedding at my house. So that's a little bit crazy.
You're hosting it got that serious. How did you host the venue? That's what I want to know.
When your friend is supposed to get married in Jamaica and Corona hits and everything gets shut down, Plan C. I'm Plan C. So y'all can't see it, but my house looks like who did it and why. I'm surrounded by sunflowers.
You know what?
Huge sunflowers. It's a little bit crazy, but we're gonna make it work.
Yesterday, you looked like you were in a cloud. You were surrounded by white tulle. I was like, Hey, are you in a cloud?
More wedding decorations, because when you're getting married in Jamaica, you don't have any decorations. No, and then all of a sudden you need everything.
I salute your friend because I was supposed to be in Jamaica too in July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For me and my lady anniversary, we were supposed to be in Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? Enjoying that good of Jamaica. Bomb. You know what I'm saying? Sister Nancy. I was supposed to be enjoying that.
But now book your flight and it'll be almost free.
Stop, man. Listen.
How are you, Marisa?
I'm doing good. Still in California. I'll be heading back to Vegas for the weekend and just to check on everything and make sure everything's good back home. But I was talking to my parents this week. This might be the longest I've been home since I left to college.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is really, really weird. Not weird in a bad way, but it's like fun weird. And my parents, sorry if you hear my mom, she's in a conference right now. But yeah, it's nice to be home. Yeah. It's nice to be home. And my parents said that even though this is a bad time, this is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. What about you, Sean?
I'm always good, man. I'm just trying to navigate this quarantine because I got things I'm planning for this year, big things, as y'all know. And she don't watch this show, so you know what I'm planning. She doesn't watch this show, so y'all know what I'm planning. But I got things going on, and I'm just trying to dog. Certain things is not working out, but this one thing did work out. So let's try to make sure everything falls in line for the rest of the year. No mishaps. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We'll see. Well, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Well, for me, it's bitter. It's a bittersweet to be able to find that point where we could interact and laugh. That certainly wasn't the place I was in, a week and a half ago, all the days blend together. But, I don't know if y'all saw the news and videos of Ahmad. The day that I watched that video, it was a hard day for me. And I'm not a super emotional person. I'm not a crier. But that day, I had a really hard time where I just felt like that sense of not again. Like, not again. Um, and that day, my son, every day he goes for a run. So he was going for a run, and I, for a moment, paused and it was like, should I tell him not to go? Um, and it's crazy that I even have to like even have that moment of pause, and then that sense of relief, like when, you know, every time a door opens in my house, it goes ding ding, front door open. So you know, I know when people come in. So when I hear like front door open and he's come back in, I was like, oh, okay, he's back. So it was a really rough day for me. But I don't know how y'all process that, are still processing that. What is going on?
For me, it was tough because y'all know I run every day, so it was like, all right, like I run outside of my condo around my neighborhood, and normally I don't ever, you don't have any issues. I'll get a couple of people like wave, or some folks will just kind of look, and I'm just like, whatever. It's just you deal with it, you know, growing up dealing with it. But after that, I was like, okay, let me run to my condominiums and just call it a day, because I'm not gonna go out, because at least in my neighborhood they know it's me. You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of still unfortunate, because for him, I'm like, I guess that was a regular routine for him, and you still got, you know, still a situation that it's one of those things where you sit here and you think like, dang, I know if anything ever happened, like, and I don't hate to say this, but if anything ever happened to me, I wish they don't paint me in this picture. At least y'all know who I was when I go. But then when it's like, oh, it's just he had all these tattoos, and I'm like, dang, like, I hate that, because it's like, I know that they're gonna try to dig something deep. So what in my college days, and I had a picture somewhere. I just know that is what happens, and I hate that that's the reality. It's hard. It's hard to process. It's hard to process. It's hard because from Trayvon Martin to Michael Brown to Eric Garner, I've watched every single one of these happen, and every time they get blamed for their murder, and it's like, wow, that that's how people think. That's like it. We get blamed for our own murders. Got it.
And so I think, you know, that idea of the criminalization, I can't
Yes.
pronounce that word, making criminals of the Black body, you know, where because of who you are, your being is seen as a threat. Um, you know, that for me became a greater reality once I remarried. So my husband has two teenage boys, one of which has special needs. Um, and he's a big dude. Like, you know, you walk up to, you see him on any street, he looks like a grown man. You know, he's 16, but he looks like a grown man. But, you know, he can talk, but he is autistic, and so often doesn't use words. Um, and so I remember, you know, when we got married, part of the conversation was, wow, we really have to teach him how to navigate the world because people will see him as a threat. You know, I would tell him, oh, Caleb, did you finish your homework? And he's not one who's going to be like, yes, I finished my homework. He's just going to run up the stairs, go get his backpack, bring it back down, pull out stuff, and show it to me. Like, there is no words exchanged. But I'm like, if he walks down the street and a police officer says, you know, asks a question that requires a yes and no, he's just going to move. Like, if it's, you want to see my ID, he's just going to move, and that's going to be seen as a threat. You know, that quick motion could easily get you shot without a second thought. So I was reading like about Tamir Rice, your 12-year-old playing with a toy gun. It's, you know, in this situation, a police officer shot first, ask questions later, and I can't help but then relate that to, you know, the boys that are look like men in my household, that you might get shot and the officer is going to ask questions later, and that's a very scary thing, um, that I before being remarried had never thought of. Man, I need to teach these very basic, you know, of how to move throughout the world. So, I know we talked about All American. If y'all remember that episode where the main character and the son of the coach are driving from driving into like Beverly Hills, but he has like his sports car and the police officer pulls him over, and Spencer, he's got it down, like you put your hands where it's supposed to be, you don't talk back, you don't make any sudden moves. And what's the other kid's name?
Yeah, I forgot the boy's name, but yeah,
but the other kid who played on the football team with him, he was like talking back and I'm fighting for my rights, and then he's like slammed on the ground and he's like, don't move, don't talk. But you know, when Spencer got back to coach, he was like, you know where we come from, why'd you never teach him?
Yeah.
You know, why haven't you taught him this? He's like, my mama taught me this from the time I was 4.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like a real moment, because where I grew up, you know, no one taught me those things. But now as a parent, you know, even living in the suburbs that I live, I'm like, oh no, we've got to teach our kids differently than.
Man, you more of a target in the suburbs. That's why I was like, your son is more of a target in the suburbs.
Because you look like you don't belong.
Yeah, trust me. That's something, depending on who you grew up around and where you. Yeah, that was something I was embedded. Like you knew what to do. You know what I'm saying? I had a situation where it was 3 of my friends and my mom in the car, and I was driving. Someone got killed in my neighborhood. They pulled us over, and of course, my mom, being loud, and was like, you know, they threw us to the car, and it had guns in our heads, all types of stuff. We was out there for an hour, and my mom was like, they didn't do nothing. I was like, Mom, just be quiet. You gonna make it worse. They ain't gonna stay. They're not gonna do anything to you. They're gonna make it worse to us. And that's what they did. And it was just one of those things where I'll never forget that. To have a shotgun at the back of your head, that's the worst feeling in the world. I'll never forget that feeling. It's one of those things that it took me years to get over. I had to go to therapy. I went to therapy to talk about that too, because that's a reality that most people think is fictional. And it's like, no, that really happens.
And do you get an apology? Like, how does that situation end? You're the wrong person. My bad. Like, what? Well, you look like him, so you got what you deserved. Get in the car and get on your way.
No, they hit me with, well, you know, there was a murder in these apartments, blah blah blah, and this car fit the description, and you guys can go home now. No apology, nothing. Of course, I filed a complaint, but it's not gonna go anywhere, because it's justified for them because someone was murdered, so everybody got searched. But that's the reality. Growing up in those types of neighborhoods, and and sometimes you're reminded, no matter how far you go or how educated you go, what type of position you're in, you're often reminded. It depends on where you're at, but you're reminded that you are looked at as a threat. So I can say for myself, that's why I embrace who I am. You know, I wear the hoodies, I wear the suits and ties, but I know at the end of the day, there's people who look at me and just see a threat, no matter what they say. But I know who I am, so that's what keeps me smiling through the day. But I also know in working environments, that's why I know I have to watch my approach, because I've been in work environments where I've had people who are aggressive try to tell me that I'm aggressive, or you're afraid. It's like, what you afraid of? Like, I'm not gonna do nothing to you, but because of that false perception of what black men are, they see me as a threat, so I have to watch my tone. I have to watch how I talk to people. And there's times where I'm like, yo, you're really wilding, and I want to put you in your place, but I can't do that. Because if not, then it's gonna turn flip on me. And that's a hard reality to live in. And most people and I'll say this, for most people of color, we know that we live through two different lenses. We live through America's lens, and then we live through ours. And most people don't get that we have to live through their lens.
Yeah, the whole code switching, being
Yeah.
able to like, hey, let me figure out what space I'm navigating today. Oh, here's the persona that you meet today.
Yep.
Versus in a different space, it's gonna change it up some, and feeling like you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. You have to do that.
I think being in this space is a great example of that, where we're able to be candid with each other. That's us being comfortable and having that relationship to have a real conversation. I am a woman of color, but I know that I have not lived through things similar to your story, Sean, or live in that fear. And I know I've had real life conversations with friends around it. I remember, I think it was 2014 or 2015. A colleague and I had a real life conversation in our office. We closed the door. Something had happened nationally, and they were feeling targeted themselves, identifying as a black male. And our conversation got real, tears on both sides, and to the point where my friend was telling me, I don't feel comfortable bringing life into this world, knowing how my future children will be seen. And that broke my heart.
Wow.
It broke my heart.
Yeah. That's a very tough feeling to have, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I've had that feeling before too. Um, Knowing that bring especially a woman. Oh my God. To be a father of girls is like one of the biggest, it's a blessing, but one of the biggest fears you can have. Because I know how America perceives women of color, especially black women. And I made a post the other day about protecting black women, um, because you have to. And not only just because I have daughters, but because I know how they look at Hispanic women. I know how they look at black women. I hear it. I see the perceptions, and sometimes, unfortunately, men don't speak up when they can, and that's some privileges that as men we can speak up for women when needed. Definitely needed at all times, but I feel you on that. I feel you to reflect on what you're saying. I feel that comment, because it's rough. How do you explain a lot of these societal negative norms, or ignorant norms too? How do you explain that to a 5, 7-year-old? It was tough to explain to my kid who goes to a private school, like, hey, you're black. It was tough to.
My daughter doesn't get that. She doesn't get it.
My kid gets it now, but it was rough explaining that to her at first, because she didn't get it either. Because she has all types of friends, which I welcome and I'm happy.
Yeah.
But there gets to a point where it's like, all right, I gotta let you know that certain things you're not perceived as like Susan over here. Like, that's just being honest. Like, you know what I'm saying?
And my daughter, I didn't realize, how soon she would start to recognize race.
Yes.
And so I don't know how the conversation came about, but she calls my husband Poppy. And she was like, Poppy's white.
Yeah.
But I stopped because he's not. He's black. He's a black man.
Fair
And I
skin.
was
Yeah.
like, wait, what? But he's light skinned.
Yeah.
And so, in her mind, like, oh, to her that was white. And so having to explain like that even black people come in all different shades, I'm a darker complexion, but she knew that she was black, but she thought my husband was white, even though they're the same complexion. I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But it's because she can't really see herself. She can see him, and she's like, oh, you're white. Little kids, she's 8. So.
18. Yeah, my daughter had the same thing. She thought my mom was white, and she thought my girlfriend was white. And I was like, no, baby, there's different shades. She was like, there's different shades. I had to break it down. And then I had to break it. She was like, so what about my wife? I was like, okay, she's white. But she also may have ethnicity of this. And that was hard to explain to a 7-year-old. Because it was like, well, she actually is Italian. Italian? I'm like, oh, all right.
It's getting complicated now.
Yeah, it's getting complicated. But that made me realize too that dang, like we make things way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yes. Yes.
We make boxes.
Yes.
And people fit into a box. Okay, this, filling out the census as I'm Mexicana, proud, 5th generation U.S. born, which is a privilege. My great grandmother and my great great grandfather lived in Arizona before Arizona was a state, so the border crossed them. Like,
so
that's just a little bit about my background, but it's boxes. And when you go into the census, I have to check mark white. I do not identify as white. I am not white, but as a Mexicana, you check mark white. And then you go into the next box. Are you Hispanic, Latino, come from Mexican background? Okay, then you check that box.
Yeah.
So it's boxes that you're put into, boxes that are socialized and made to be like, okay, this is how we understand who the person is.
Mm-hmm.
But you all were talking about your children. Do y'all remember coloring as a child and there was only options of the yellow crayon,
Yep.
the brown crayon, and the black crayon? Those were your shades. I think in college Crayola came out with the skin tone shades. And as a 18, 19, 20-year-old, whenever they came out, I bought them. Yes, I may have been an adult, but I bought them because that meant something to me. That meant something to me knowing that I now had a shade available to me when I colored, when I had a coloring book. That was something that meant the world to me because it wasn't available as a child.
I salute that because I did that. I picked it out for my daughters because of course she colored. So now it's cool. Back then we definitely didn't have that. We had to take this brown and we're gonna have to mix it up a little bit, player. We're gonna make it a little light. So yeah, I definitely had that. I definitely wanted to piggyback back on when you're taking the census, right? It's crazy because that is important because for my ex-wife, she's Ghanaian American, right? So her parents, she's first generation for her family to be born in America because her parents are from Ghana. And for folks out there who don't know, that's a country in Africa. And so then, there's a misconception when it comes to Black Americans, like myself and Raquel, and then there's African Americans, right? And there's that issue, and I know other ethnicities deal with the same issue as far as folks who are born in the U.S. who are essentially full blood, because there's different names. It's issues that go into play with that, and I know we're kind of going off, but I know there's an issue when it comes to people who are from different countries filling out the census because they're like, well, I'm Ghanaian, but Black American, that's a Black American. I'm not Black, and that's a whole other conversation in itself. But yeah, I see those issues all the time. We have those conversations, But most of the time they tell them just check black. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I'll say that.
So, just to shift gears a little bit, I know May 8th was Ahmad's birthday.
Yeah.
You may have seen going around social media a run, I run with Ahmad or for Ahmad, 2.23 miles. 2/23 was the day that he was shot and killed. And so across America, folks were running with the hashtag, I am not a runner. I went out and did a walk run. I used my times outside. I pray and I run. But I in that time, I was just, it was a sad prayer of, that we are in 2020 and this is still the lived experience for so many people. And doing something seemingly simple. I was out jogging down a street. Imagine if someone had just, gunned me down. Like that just seems crazy. And then it seems even crazier that so much time could pass. Now, when we're filming this, the two gentlemen who shot Ahmad have been arrested.
Finally.
Today is May 14th. They shot him February 23rd. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. I was looking at what's her name? Hold on, because it was right after the Trayvon Martin shooting. The woman who in Florida fired a warning shot.
Yeah.
So if we're familiar with Trayvon Martin, he was shot and the defense that was used was it was stand your ground.
But actually,
this woman, she didn't shoot anyone. She didn't kill anyone. She fired a warning shot and she was going to prison. I was like, how does that happen? But you see that it's a different experience, for those African American people than, the gentlemen who were white who shot Ahmad. And yeah, those are things that are hard to process.
And that's crazy about your stand your ground, because I dug deep into that Trayvon Martin case, and actually I just recently got my concealed weapons. I passed my concealed weapons license class, and we talked about that, and they showed different clippings of what stand your ground means compared to certain cases that we saw, and that situation they used that, but it really wasn't stand your ground. Stand your ground is because we're a stand your ground state. So when your stand ground is when you're opposed to a threat and that person is literally bringing harm to you, another weapon, or they're trying to kill you. That's when stand your ground law is in effect and you can get away and you're fine. But Trayvon Martin had Skittles in Arizona, and they still waved it off, and George Zimmerman still gets to live to this day. No justice served. That's the part that shocked, and just for the world to know who are watching this, that's why it was so touchy. That's why it was such an issue, because people really didn't have that real conception of what stand your ground law means. And it's still frustrating to this day to sit here and see that you saw a father and a son. A whole month and a half passed before they were actually brought in for prosecution for the murder. And I think the county sheriff at the time said that it was justified. They were saying that his death was justified, and that's why they didn't prosecute him. The local authorities, but the FBI, of course, they're saying like, hey, we're not saying how the other law enforcement handled the case. We just know we've been brought in. That's how they deflected, unfortunately.
Well, yesterday on the news, they were talking about it, and a new videotape that was released of an individual that went into a house. They didn't break in, but they're saying now it's the same person, and that they're using it as they were protecting themselves. But even that video was from like October
Okay.
when that
Yeah.
happened. It's from October. So you're saying you remember somebody you saw in October, in February, and you're justifying what you did. You took a life and you're
Yeah.
justifying it because something in October. If I met you in October, I don't remember who you are unless you are a constant in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are a constant in my life, I don't know who you are. So you are bringing apples and bananas to the table and trying to say they're the same thing. No, that isn't fair. That isn't fair.
And since when was the punishment for trespassing death?
At that point, that's premeditated, isn't it? That's premeditated murder at that point.
Thank you. That's even worse.
Mhm,
You've been plotting for how many months?
mhm.
Yeah, man.
I hope someone. They need you as an attorney. Where's Sean? He needs to be the attorney because that's premeditated all day.
Oh man,
All
I got my lawyer. Let me get my lawyer. My lawyer will come out there.
So I was
Man.
watching Como on CNN.
Oh, come on. Okay.
And he had Ahmad's sister on May 7th, so the day before his birthday. She was on and she was saying, when the police came to their home, what they were told was he was in the midst of a burglary. Like he was doing the burglary and the homeowners killed him, is what they were originally told.
Wow.
And,
So
and then you see the reality of really someone who's jogging down the middle of the street, even that jog down the middle of the street, if you try to have even the slightest stretch of imagination to think like, well, he burglarized the house and he was running away. He ran away with nothing, and he was a slow jog. Like if you were trying to get away, you'd be a full-on sprint. And
yeah.
you'd be hiding behind stuff, not just like slowly down the middle of the road. And so the stories just don't even make sense.
Well, let's be real. We know what Georgia is. Georgia is one of those states where the Confederate flag flies proudly down there, and you still get called boy. Cause my dad's from Athens, Georgia, and I'm a city boy. So when I went out to Georgia, it was a whole reality for me of like, oh, they still get down. They still talk to you this way. Like this the South. This ain't something that 2020 or not. They still think that way, and that's what's crazy to me. That people are like, oh my God, like race it's over. No. I was just in New Orleans for Essence Fest this past summer with my lady. We drove by. We were driving, and I'm like driving back to the airport. I'm like, oh. Confederate here, Confederate there. They proud over here. It's time for me to get out. See, the Confederate flag means we know what that. As people of color, we know what that means, and we, regardless of how people try to spin it, we're gonna go the other direction.
You might as well say you are not welcome here. That's what it translates to.
That's what it means to us. Exactly. The folks of color, we know what it means. No way to sugarcoat that. I remember being in therapy when I was intern therapist. I remember I had a family and they were talking about the Confederacy, and it took everything in me not to walk out that room, because it was like trying to justify it to me, and I'm just sitting here like no judgment, like okay, this is getting too touchy. It's time for me to get out.
Tapping out. This is I'm about to exceed my emotional intelligence, so I need to go ahead and pass this to somebody else. Sorry. Well, anything else we want to share?
Just want to, for our students out there, please be safe, man. I mean, I know we're in a completely different city, and honestly, we're in a city where I hate it doesn't happen as much in Vegas, but there's situations where it happens for sure. So what I will tell you is, please be safe, be smart and be smart when you get into interactions with law enforcement. Be respectful as much as you can. Don't give them any reason to take you in or to say you did something. You always got to protect yourself because you want to go home. You know what I'm saying? There's no real honest way I can tell you what to do because everyone's experience with law enforcement is different. But just be safe, man. That's what I have to say to our students out here who are shaken up by this situation. But I'm actually glad that we decided to talk about this because I know at times this is what the tea at the blue table is for because people want to avoid these types of conversations. And we think just because we're in higher education or because we're at this point, we don't deal with these issues. No, we still do.
Mm-hmm. And I think it gives us an opportunity to recognize, what things add to these misperceptions about Black bodies. And with students in higher education, y'all are going to go out and become those producers, be those screenwriters. And what will you show? Will you show the things that, some folks in the areas of the country that they live, they may not encounter people that look like me or look like Sean or look like Marisa. My ex-husband, he's about my age. I'm 40. He's a little bit older than me. So, we're not ancient, but he was like, until he was in his 20s and went to the military, he'd never seen a Mexican person in person. He'd only seen Mexican people on TV. Now, imagine if your only idea of what a population of people are like is from what you've watched on TV. And for some people, that's the reality. And so what they see on TV, the depictions of Black men look like they're scary and they want to hurt you and they're a threat. And so we have the opportunity, y'all as students have the opportunity to change that perception, to share a different story, to share the real story, and not just these, misrepresentations. That's all I gotta say.
Be proud of who you are. I, again, identify as Mexicana, and I know that Sean and Raquel saw me in my shirt that said, proud, or I'm the Mexican you were warned about, well-educated Mexican you were warned about.
I love that shirt.
And that's my way of standing up for who I am. So be proud of who you are, but also be aware of your surroundings. I don't have stories like Sean or Raquel, but there are definitely people who are racist out there. Just going to the store, my sister and I speak Spanish to each other, and I'm told, you live in America, speak English. So very, very different narrative, not the same on the same level, but know where you're at because people can carry guns in the state, and so don't challenge them because you don't want to put yourself in that danger. Be aware of where you are at. I am outspoken, I am loud, people know that, I'm proud of that, but when I'm out and about, I definitely know I'm out and about and I check myself.
Check yourself.
Yes, because I'm looking at these protests down at these different, the governor's office, and people with full-on shotguns.
Yo.
And I'm like, if that was a group of Black people, this would look like a very different situation.
You saw any of my Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Black folks, if we was all up there, it'd be a different story.
With guns on your hip, on every hip. Why is one person walking around with a shotgun, another gun? If we walked out the house like that, no, people would ask questions later.
There is a great social experiment video out there on YouTube of two social science educators, professors. I don't remember what their titles are.
I saw that.
One white individual had multiple guns, and the police officers told him, "Hey, have a good day." Saying a person of color did it, and they stopped him, searched him, arrested him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That did for carbs. So I saw that it was immediate. They were like,
Yes.
put the gold on the ground. I was like, that is it, and that's the crazy reality. I remember in Vegas they did that. They had a dude who was actually who actually was out here in the neighborhood patrolling. Hey, I'm just out here patrolling the neighborhood. I'm just like, yo, what? I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we can do. I'm like, all right. That's why my lady and myself, we went and got concealed weapons license just to make sure, like, hey, listen, I don't want no issues. I don't care if it's open carry state. Because I know, unfortunately, that doesn't apply to me. That's the hard on truth. Because I know anytime someone can say, oh, he has a gun, and it's a wrap for me.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Well, be safe. Until
safe.
next time, tea at the blue table. We love that you join us. When you see the comments below, please comment, share with us what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Did you do the 2.23 run?
Yes.
Also, if there's topics that you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and drop those in the comments too.
Drop that in the comments. Thank you guys. We love you guys. Coyote fam, the tea at the blue table. We are out. Peace.